Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Welcome, my dear students of grade 10, first secondary, to a new lesson of biology. Our lesson in chapter 2, unit 4, classification. The lesson is talking about modern classification of living organisms. If we are talking about classification, we know that a lot of living organisms near us, around us, everywhere, maybe plants or animals or microorganisms. Some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are unicellular. You cannot see by your eyes. Very small in size, they are microscopical organisms. And some living organisms are big in size, huge maybe in size, like huge trees, huge elephants, huge whales, and so on. So we have a lot of living organisms around us. So it comes to a necessity for classifying these organisms to facilitate their study. And when we discover a new organism, we put it in the similar group and identify it and define it very well by putting it in the same group. The process of classification or the science of classification starts from old ages, maybe before Christ. The Greek scientist Aristotle was the first one who classified living organisms. He made a classification of living organisms into two groups, classified the living organisms into animals and plants, and classified the animals into red and blooded, and the other group is bloodless animals. And they classify the plants into three groups: big trees, shrubs, which are small trees, and weeds, which are small plants like herb or like grass. Then in the new ages, in the recent time, Carl Linnaeus, the scientist Carl Linnaeus, we can call him the father of the science of taxonomy or the father of the classification. He was the first one who defined the living organisms and make the definition of species. He classified living organisms into two kingdoms: animal kingdom and plant kingdom. And the new scientist, or the recent scientist, which is called Robert Whittaker, he made a new system of classification called the modern classification. The modern classification by Robert Whittaker, he classified the living organisms into 5 kingdoms: Kingdom Monera, Kingdom Protesta, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plantae, and Kingdom Animalia. Finally, Kingdom Animalia. If we are going to start talking about the first kingdom in the modern classification, we are talking about Kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera include only bacteria, the very small living organisms, which we cannot see by naked eyes. We need a microscope to study them. Bacteria in Kingdom Monera, maybe live individually or in colonies. When they accumulate in groups, they make something called colonies. Structure of bacteria: this kind of bacteria or in Kingdom Monera, the body consists of one cell, and the nucleus of the cell is prokaryotic. The meaning of prokaryotic: the cell is not real cell. The cell doesn't contain a real nucleus. The hereditary substance or the chromosomes are spread in the cytoplasm without surrounded by a nuclear envelope. So no real nucleus, so we call it prokaryotic. And the cytoplasm is devoid of many membranous organelles. It doesn't contain many organelles like mitochondria, plastids, Golgi complex, endoplasmic reticulum, etc. So kingdom Monera is the smallest and the simplest possible living organisms ever. Kingdom Monera is classified into two different groups. The old bacteria, which is called Archaea Bacteria, and the Eubacteria. So we have two groups, Archaea Bacteria and Eubacteria. Archaea Bacteria, most of them live and survive in the harsh conditions like high temperature, high salty water, and a shortage of oxygen. This is very difficult places to live for any living organism. Only Archaea Bacteria which can live in this harsh environment. And the Eubacteria, which spread more in different areas, they live everywhere, in all environments. And some of them are autotrophic. They can make food by themselves. And others are heterotrophic. And they reproduce by binary fission. Example of Eubacteria, nostoc, which has this shape. Maybe the nostoc has a round shape or a spherical shape. Other bacteria has a rod shape, and the other bacteria has a spiral shape. So bacteria has many shapes, maybe rod, maybe spherical, maybe spiral. Now we can go to the second kingdom, which is called kingdom protesta. They are more developed than kingdom Monera. We'll see why they are more developed. Because they are eukaryotic organisms. The meaning of eukaryotic, they have a real nucleus. The nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear envelope or a nuclear membrane. So it is separated from the cytoplasm. The chromosomes or the hereditary substance is separated from the cytoplasm. And their structure is not complex like plants or animals, but they are unicellular organisms. They're still very small organisms, microscopical organisms. Some of them live free, and some of them are parasitic. Some of them have cell walls and green plastids. So some of them are autotrophs. They are autotrophs. They can make their food by photosynthesis. And the others live free, and others live as a parasitic live. So they are maybe free, maybe autotrophic, maybe parasitic. Phylum number 1 in kingdom protesta, phylum Protozoa. Phylum Protozoa include many classes. We take some of them for examples of these classes. Class number 1, Sarcodina. Class number 2, Celiophora. Class number 3, Flagellata. Class number 4, Sporozoa. The difference between these classes according to the way of locomotion or the way of movement. We will start with class Sarcodina. They move by zidopoda. Zidopoda means fake legs, not real legs. They move by legs, fake legs. They like amoeba. Here we can see the picture of amoeba. It has some cytoplasmic extensions spread everywhere around the body, and this extension changes its place many times. It has no fixed place. It comes from the left sometimes, then change into the right, then change into other place, and so on. So it is called fake legs or zidopoda. The movement here of amoeba by zidopoda. Second class Coleophora. The movement here by cilia. The example here, Paramecium. The cilia surround the body, surround the cell membrane, and it helps in movement. Cilia is like small hairs. By vibration or by movement, the cilia pushes the living organism forward or backward. The example here, Paramecium, or of class Coleophora. The next one is called flagellata. Flagellata like trypanosoma. Trypanosoma or trypanosoma, which causes the sleeping disease or sleeping sickness disease. Trypanosoma move by flagella or something like this in Euglena, this flagella. We can see the flagella of Euglena here. It is an extension which helps in movement by its vibration. The most important here is a way of movement of flagellata by flagella. The example here, trypanosoma. Trypanosoma cause a disease, famous disease maybe in Africa, spread in Africa, called the sleeping disease or sleeping sickness. Class number 4, Sporozoa. Sporozoa has no way of locomotion or no way of movement. The example here, Plasmodium, which cause the malaria disease. The Plasmodium, which causes the malaria, doesn't move by any way of movement, but it is carried by a certain kind of mosquitoes. So here we can move to second phylum in kingdom, Protesta. The second phylum here is called Euglenophyta. It includes a famous example which is called Euglena. Euglena move by flagella. As you see, its body is has a body which indented in the top. It is thick in the middle and thin in the two tops. And it is a link between animals and plants because it can move, and also it has green plastids. It has green plastids which help it in movement. So the Euglena is a unicellular organism which can move by flagella or by a way of the body, spiral movement of the body, and it contains chloroplast to perform photosynthesis process. So you can consider Euglena as a link between plants and animals. Phylum number 3, Chrysophyta. Chrysophyta, most of them are unicellular organisms. Example, the famous example of Chrysophyta is diatoms. You can call them also the golden algae. Diatoms or the golden algae have glass-like wall containing cilia. They are an important source for food for fish and other marine animals. And also you can say that Chrysophyta or diatoms, the main reason of formation of petroleum oil sediments in the seas and oceans. They are very important because they are the food for small fish and small creatures live in seas and oceans. Phylum number 4, phylum Pterophyta. Phylum Pterophyta, they live in seas, oceans, in the salty water. You can call them the Dinoflagellates. Example here, Dinoflagellates. They can call them the fire algae. They live in seas and oceans where they form a great portion of the plankton. The meaning of plankton, the food for small fish and for small creatures in the seas and oceans. So they are very important, Pterophyta. They contain red pigment beside chlorophyll pigment, so you can call them also the red algae. Dinoflagellates, they have two flagella to move. Most of them move by two flagella. And they cause something weird happens sometimes in the seashores. When their number increase by reproduction, they cover a large area of the seashore by red color, and they secrete some poisonous substance, and they cause the death of a lot of marine creatures like fish, and this is called the red tide. This is a phenomenon is called the red tide. We will stop here. In the next video we'll talk about kingdom fungi, inshallah. Thank you for following us. Until we meet again, goodbye everybody. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.